they like blame the gun. Last time I checked, I've never heard of a news story where, a gun opened itself up out of a box somewhere and floated down some hallways and shot some people. Inanimate objects don't kill people. It's ridiculous. But that's what's been on my mind lately. I can't rant anymore because it's starting to hurt my
your
gut.
head. Well, the thing is also I want to point out that this person, and as is, they state that they're paramedic, but we have to take this as the word of the internet. We don't know for sure. This is something I'm reading off of Reddit. This is a supposed first responders comment about the situation. Current active shooter protocols for most departments is similar and of two variations. The first officer on scene or small team of officers, 2 to 4, make a contact team and go engage the shooter. They are not to wait for SWAT. They are not to set up barricades. They are not to tend to wounded. Whether it's one officer or 4, they have no other job than to move towards the gunfire and engage the shooter. After that point, the other responding officers will set up teams and either be another contact team or an escort team for medical personnel. While I don't fault the officers for having a natural human reaction to facing a threat and fog of war, either the department isn't current with commonly accepted active shooter protocols, or officers didn't follow them, and quite possibly to the detriment of the victims. Source: I am a paramedic. I have done my share of active shooter training with PD. This is their statement. Now, as is, if this is true that they have an active shooter protocol that is similar, if not exactly as stated with this, especially when it comes to schools, then this is very damning. And not to mention also, this school supposedly already has active shooter drills, and they have practiced them in the past, and they're planning on one coming up. Woo-hoo! So it makes me wonder, what is that police department's policy on this? Because here's
subscriber. I just got to say hey and thanks, Jerry. All right, cool. Right,
yeah, and as is, when it comes to this, also, I was stationed at Fort Hood, but not present because I was on deployment when the Hassan there dude shot up the processing building for people that were getting ready to deploy. And it was a brave female MP that responded to the shooting who stopped him from continuing his actions. She was injured in the exchange of fire, but she injured him where he could not continue to injure and kill other people during his shooting rampage.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's
Yeah, and wow. As I said, that kind of, and the thing is, if there was 1 or 4, I don't care. I mean, as is that there was a resource officer assigned to that school. Most likely, I'm pretty sure they're armed with a firearm, and they could have probably prevented it from getting worse.
Media today, Bunny, that there was 3 other officers hiding behind the cars as well, and they were sheriff's deputies.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting here scratching my head. It's like, you couldn't have maybe stopped this? What's going on here? As I said, there's a lot of stuff that don't add up with this situation. There's a lot of stinky stuff that keeps coming out in the media every single day.
Some of the reports that I've read, Bunny, state that he was at one point walking along the outside of the school, firing from outside into the windows. So the cops could have very easily, maneuvered to the corners of one of the buildings and, got a prepared firing position and waited for him to come towards them. Or it could have been possible if they would have, started rounding the corners of the school, they could have turned a corner and his back would have been to them. And then they could have just, unloaded on him. If he was doing what the report I said was walking outside of the school and shooting into the windows at one point, like they had a 50-50 chance of turning a corner and his back was to him. It just depends on what side of the building they're on and what side of the building he was on. But yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, that one cop that, resigned, I mean, that's a good start. But the other 3 need to follow his example, You know, like it's ridiculous, and it's not his duty as a cop, because I'm an anarchist. I don't care about any of that stuff. He's an armed man. These are children. You know, an armed man with weapons training.
Yeah, and actually, on top of that, if I remember correctly, late last year, remember that shooting that happened at a small Texas town? That guy that went on a rampage and shot up a church?
Yes, and the police ended up shooting the man that was trying that stopped the shooting. The police showed up and shot and killed the man that stopped that shooting.
No, I don't think they shot. Did they? I thought he survived. No, he was shot by the. No, he exchanged gunfire with the shooter. He injured the shooter. He died. Yeah. And the thing is, it was his act of valor preventing him from going on, taking the rampage even further. I posted
that on my Facebook wall recently. I'll pull it up.
It wasn't the cops that shot him. It was the shooter, because it was an exchange of gunfire, and they both were wounded. But nonetheless, it still goes to prove the point that when it comes to an active shooter situation, it takes someone armed and the guts willing to step up and put themselves at risk. And when you sign up to be a police officer, you should be expecting to put yourself at the risk and put your life behind those that are unarmed and are unable to defend themselves.
Here's another one. By the way, our guest said he's going to go out and smoke and then come back and
okay.
Check this out. Okay, so here's one for you that I just posted to my Facebook, and it's a NewYorkDailyNews.com story. Okay, and this is my sarcastic little header. But this tragedy could have been prevented if Washington, D.C. had the courage to ban knives. Okay, 22 injured in stabbing rampage at Philadelphia High School. So Google 22 injured in stabbing rampage at Philadelphia High School, New York Daily News. Okay, so this kid stabbed 16 people. You know, so if liberals and anti-gun folks, because I'm sure there's some anti-gun folks that aren't liberals, you know, out there are saying that it's the gun's fault, then it's the knives' fault too. You know, I think, but I don't see anybody standing outside or picketing and screaming about banning knives. But this kid injured, he stabbed 16 people.
Yeah, well, and as is, it doesn't matter what country or where you're at. If someone really wants to go and harm people, they're going to find a way. And depending on how determined they are and how much resources they have at their hands or fingertips, it will depend on how much damage they will do. Because I mean, it's not. I mean, we have countries in the Europe that have had mass shootings, and we've also had people in both the United States and in Europe that have taken vehicles and ran people over. Well, drove them through large crowds and stuff like that.
Sure. Like, as a society, we have a violence problem. We don't have a gun problem. We have a violence problem. You know, it's really funny that here's one for you. London, you know, according to what is it, the Daily Mail, and that's corporate news over in the UK. London has more crime than New York City.
Yeah,
and they ban guns there. Like that's incredible. You know, welcome to Knife Crime Island. This message brought to you by the London Metropolitan Bureau of Shank-Resistant Body Armor and Tourism. You know,
yeah,
it's like ban guns, and they start using knives at a higher rate. And London is literally like trying to actually all of the UK is trying to outlaw public carrying of knives.
Oh.
They actually have drop boxes, you know, big public awareness campaigns. Knives are evil, you know. Put the knife in the locking drop box so the authorities can pick it up.
Yeah, like, well, you know what's a big problem over in the UK? Acid attacks.
Sure, yeah.
I'd rather be shot by a bullet than get hit with a fucking acid attack.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'd rather take the risk of being killed instantly over being completely disfigured for the rest of my life. Thank you very much.
Sure. One of the things that's really prolific in the UK, too, is for them to improvise weapons. a lot of these people will go into a machine shop and make this big gnarly hatchet or this big ugly machete that's about 2 to 3 inches thick and like 6 inches long, so it'll crush and chop, and bludgeon people with that. Like some of the improvised weapons that people are making in the UK are just frightening. Like I would much rather, be shot than hit with some of this stuff. I mean, if you want to have if you want to take a tour down the dark heart of man, just do Google image searches and search the web for improvised weapons confiscated off of people in the UK. Just do a little digging, and you can find images of some of this stuff, and it's frightening. That's because a human is a bad animal. Ask any psychologist, and they will tell you that one of the most common human fantasies is murder. That's why people say, it's a common colloquialism for people to say, I'm going to kill him when I get home, or man, I could just kill that guy. It's because it's just right there on the edge of our consciousness all the time. It's like right there in the back of our Cambrian mind. The struggle for food, shelter, and sex is part of our, it's part of our Cambrian brain, and it's always going to be there.